Hey everybody, I hope that y'all had a great week. I hope that y'all had a great Thanksgiving. I had some great time with my family. It's always great to just spend time watching the kids play, have time with your spouse. My wife and I had a great time hitting baseballs with the kids, doing everything that we love to do. Great Thanksgiving week, great time with family. This week, we didn't waste any time after the holiday, jumping right back into several important votes to protect our environment and to protect our community. On Monday of this week, Congress passed the Frank LoBiondo Coast Guard Reauthorization Act. We called it the Frank LoBiondo Coast Guard Reauthorization Act because he's retiring. He's been on the committee for some time, and so we named it after him. This is a bill written by the subcommittee that I chair, the Coast Guard and Maritime Transportation Subcommittee. It's an honor to be chairman of that committee. Our bill, it reauthorizes, it strengthens, it supports the U.S. Coast Guard, many of its critical missions that keep our homeland and our waterways safe. So very important for our community, very important for us as the state of Florida. As you might know, Florida has the second largest coastline in the country. So making sure that the men and women of the Coast Guard have the resources that they need to carry out their evolving missions, it's critically important for our state. They're responsible for protecting our waterways, promoting healthy environment, enforcing our maritime laws, border security. They're responsible for so much. So it's a very important piece of legislation that we just got passed, and in that we'll look forward to starting work on the next one. Also, within this same bill, we made a great progress to conserve land and protect wildlife in our own community by a bill that I wrote, and this bill specifically was to transfer 4 acres of unused land that was currently owned by the U.S. Coast Guard on Jupiter Island and transfer that land into the Hobe Sound National Wildlife Refuge. This is it's something that finally settles a decades-old dispute over that land and ensures that the endangered animals that call this area home, they're kept in good hands and that their habitats are maintained in their natural and pristine condition. So this was something that the community had literally been working on for decades, and I'm happy that we could finally get that over the finish line. This builds on top of some more great bipartisan progress that we've recently made in the House to preserve our coastal communities here in Florida and elsewhere along the Atlantic coastline. For example, we recently passed the Strengthening Coastal Communities Act. This is a bill that adds about 17,000 new acres of coastal land to the Coastal Barrier Resources System, which makes them essentially off limits to federal funds for development projects that could harm habitats in those areas. It's a major win. It's a major win for wildlife, major win for those on the waterfront communities, those that are across our coastal areas of Florida and all along the East Coast. Finally, we also passed a short-term extension of the flood insurance, the National Flood Insurance Program. It's critical for many families across our community. This is something that we especially realize in times of hurricane like Michael, which recently passed. But we need a long-term extension to this. This is something that in these past 2 years we've been working on a long-term extension for this. Now we have another opportunity to go and get that done. I'm committed to doing the work necessary to prevent a lapse in coverage for those families that do rely on the National Flood Insurance Program. So that's been another good one that we went out and worked on this week. Now, as most of you know, the biggest thing that I work on in this office for our community is our waterways. It's why I asked to be placed on that committee of transportation and infrastructure. It's why on that committee I'm the vice chairman of the Water Resources and Environment Subcommittee and the chairman of the Coast Guard and Maritime Subcommittee. These are the places that we go out there and above anywhere else in Congress have the opportunity to work on our waterways. So I just want to let you know that as we speak, my staff and I are out there gearing up, trying to make sure that we have every single thing that we can have in place to go out there and fight some major battles as we move through this next year and these next couple years. Fights like going out there and making sure that we have everything in place that we need to go out there and get the best possible work done on the Lake Okeechobee regulation schedule for our community. As you may know, I wrote it into law earlier this year that the Corps of Engineers must redo the Lake Okeechobee regulation schedule. So now that that's been written into law, the President signed that into law, we're working on making sure that we have everything we need in place to fight that fight the right way and have a major win for our community in that. One of the other places that we're going out there working on the same front, most of you have heard me talking about, really beating the drum with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the South Florida Water Management District, saying that, in my opinion, there is only one way for those entities to work to prevent harmful discharges between today and hurricane season of 2019. And the only way that I see that they can work to prevent that, because there's a lot of other good things that we're working on, but they're long-term infrastructure projects like the reservoir south of Lake Okeechobee, like the repairs of the Kissimmee River, the raising of the Tamiami Trail. Those are longer-term projects. But the one way that we can work to prevent discharges next year, especially these toxic algal-filled discharges, cyanobacteria, microcystin algae, is to work to have the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the South Florida Water Management District lower the levels of Lake Okeechobee, lower than what they would normally lower them between now and next hurricane season, which begins essentially the middle of May 2019. So what's my goal in that? And right now there is a wind going on. Right now Lake Okeechobee is several feet lower right now than what it was at this same time last year. So we're getting ahead of schedule right now. My goal is to keep that constant drumbeat with the Corps of Engineers and the South Florida Water Management District to say, listen, you have a goal of having Lake Okeechobee down to about 12.5 feet when we hit the next hurricane season. I want you to have Lake Okeechobee down to 10.5 feet or 10 feet when we hit the next hurricane season. If we would have been 2 feet lower this past year, we probably wouldn't have received one discharge the entire summer of 2018. That's how much of a difference that can make to lower the levels of Lake Okeechobee just a couple of feet. This is something that is good for all parties involved. If we're lowering those levels of Lake Okeechobee during this dry time of the year right now, getting that lake level lower in preparation for hurricane season, that means that we're doing our utmost to make sure that the dike around Lake Okeechobee is secure and is not going to have high waters that puts that in jeopardy. It means that we're doing everything that we can to send waters over to places like the Caloosahatchee when they're requesting water. Right now is a time of year that the Caloosahatchee is requesting more water. They're requesting up to about 1,000 CFS, cubic feet per second of water, that they're not receiving. They're only getting about 350 to 450 cubic feet per second of water. So they actually want more water over there. They need more water over there for the good ecology of their waterway. And if they take that water right now, that means that we don't have to take that water next hurricane season when the Corps of Engineers decides they want to start dumping water on us again. So these are two of the biggest things that I'm working on every single day, staying on top of the Corps, staying on top of the Water Management District, working on a number of different fronts. But just to let you know, that and a number of other things, we're out there having the battle on our waterways every single day to make sure that we're preparing for the upcoming summer and the upcoming hurricane season. In that, with that note, as I always say, it is an honor to serve you here in Congress. It's an honor to represent you here. It's an honor to have you give me the opportunity to go and serve our community a second time as your member of Congress. So thank you to all of you for that. I hope to see you around this weekend as I'm around town, and I wish you all the best. Y'all have a good one.